So it's been a hot minute. Am I a hot minute? I mean, like, over an entire year. Sorry about that. I'll talk more about where I've been and what my plans are for the channel at the back end of this video, because for now, I've got some pretty exciting stuff for you all today that I'd like to just dive straight into, to be honest. As the title states, I was able to get about 2 hours of hands-on time with the upcoming expansion for Guild Wars 2, Janthir Wilds. I was initially invited to this hands-on session for my coverage on the Skill Up YouTube channel, which is where I do all my content creation full-time. Obviously, though, I'm a big Guild Wars 2 fan, and I've got a lot to say, particularly when it comes to stuff that only Guild Wars 2 players would be interested in. So I asked ArenaNet if it was okay for me to do some more in-depth coverage here on my personal channel, and they said yes. So yeah, got heaps of stuff to talk about here. Everything you see here is my own recorded footage. If you want to go into this expansion completely blind, then obviously don't watch this video, though you can probably just minimize this tab and listen to me yap if you want to hear my thoughts without the visual spoilers. So the first thing I noticed was that this is in fact a continuation of the storyline kicked off in Secrets of the Obscure. ArenaNet actually began this tour by being very forthcoming about their shortcomings with that expansion, particularly when it comes to storytelling. It was really nice to see them so candid about that, and I get the sense that they've really committed a big effort to avoid those same criticisms in Janthir Wilds, with a story that's a lot tighter and smaller in scope, though I didn't play enough of it to really comment as to whether or not they've succeeded. The setup is that Tyria is looking to form a sort of United Nations alliance to defend against future threats, and part of that is looking for a certain wizard who has run away to Janthir. But you probably know everything that you need to for the story from a previous blog post, so I won't talk too much about that. The expansion then wastes no time in shuttling us to the first map and meeting the lowland codin. I kind of imagine they'd be hostile to outsiders, but they've caught word of our heroic deeds, so they're actually quite welcoming. ArenaNet did confirm that despite their detail, they are not a new playable race. Apparently they've actually toyed with this idea, like they really wanted to make it work, but they just couldn't, which honestly is fair enough. But immediately it's clear that there's a very different vibe to this expansion. It's all just really chill, like there isn't an immediate world-ending threat, or even really any clear antagonist from the get-go, which is a pretty stark contrast to the beginnings of literally every other expansion where you're thrown straight into the conflict. It opens to a serene forest landscape, accompanied by a very Valheim-esque string-based soundtrack. It was really lovely. Like, the soundtrack sounds very different to anything else we've heard from this game, I think. The environments do look great too. They've mentioned a couple times already that it's inspired by places like Iceland, and that totally comes through, particularly with the stunning aurora borealis that appears in the night sky. Notably, there's a lot less man-made stuff going on here. It's like 80% natural landscape from what I can tell, which again feels quite refreshing given Secrets of the Obscure didn't have a lot of that. To help navigate the map, we then hop on our warclaws. So as you likely know, in Janthir Wilds, the warclaw mount from World vs. World is getting a bit of a revamp to be a more functional open world PvE mount. I've always really liked the warclaw. I'm kind of partial to those cat-like mounts, probably because of my days in vanilla WoW as a night elf, but yeah, it's got a really cool kit in World vs. World with its spear throw to dismount enemies and the chain pull to tear down gates. Always thought it'd be a really cool fit for PvE, and honestly, it's actually even better than I thought, to the point where I can actually see this being my favorite mount in the game. So we knew that it was getting this double jump ability. Immediately when I read that, I was hoping it'd feel like Torrent from Elden Ring, and yep, it totally does. My group was actually led by Nick Hernandez, one of the leads on Guild Wars 2, and he actually confirmed that that was the main inspiration for the warclaw's traversal, which is very cool. Thing is, this isn't just like a linear vertical hop like I expected. You don't get just one hop, but up to 3, and it actually works kind of like a trampoline where your jump height scales with fall distance. You can actually see in my gameplay here while I was screwing around in Divinity's Reach that I can almost maintain sustained air time if I had just the slightest elevation to jump from. This was really surprising to me, and the fact that you've got that alongside the short distance dash with the dodge key makes this a super versatile mount that sort of combines the Raptor, Springer, and Jackal in one, but those are still faster
in each of their use cases. What that means though is that if you're a new player and you've just jumped in with Secrets of the Obscure, I think you'll comfortably cover all bases when it comes to traversal if you've got just this and the Skyscale. So yeah, was really impressed by the warclaw. In some ways, it almost feels like a brand new mount, far more so than the minor additions that Secrets of the Obscure brought to the Skyscale. You also unlock both the warclaw and Homesteads very early on in the story, which is awesome. I mean, you don't need to do any lengthy collection like the Skyscale or Siege Turtle. You can see here one of the first missions was defending this warclaw as we guided it to a nearby village, and it's literally unlocked right as you finish that. Please excuse my gameplay, by the way. It was like 3 a.m. for me, so I was a little delirious, and I really wanted to play exclusively with the new spear skills, so I was still getting the hang of things. On that note, we should probably talk about the spears a little bit. You've probably read the latest updates to the spear weapons after the feedback from the beta, and yeah, a lot of that was actually already implemented here, which was cool to see. The Revenant, for example, got a lot of widespread criticism during the beta with its slow animations and lack of condition damage outside of Torment. Pleased to report that it feels way better now, at least in terms of feel, though obviously I can't comment on actual performance. I guess I never really shared my thoughts about the spears, so what I will say is that I think they're the most fun weapons we've ever had in the game, and it's not even close. Like, I love the internal mechanics of the Ranger Spear, the Thief, the Revenant. The giant spell effects on the Elementalist are insane, and the Mesmer and Necromancer's toolkit feel really super fluid. I mean, the fact that these are here on launch as opposed to Secrets of the Obscure adding the new weapons months after is also fantastic. It's going to make the whole experience feel immediately fresh. I really can't wait to play with these again. On the topic of combat, one of the concerns that I, and I think many players had coming from Secrets of the Obscure, oh my god, that name is a mouthful, was enemy variety. I mean, we spent that entire expansion cycle fighting almost exclusively Cryptus. Given I wasn't a fan of them from the get-go with their visually noisy designs and familiar movesets, I got pretty tired of fighting them very early on, and by extension got pretty tired of all the content in that expansion very quickly. It seems to me like that might be less of an issue here. The first map had a bunch of wildlife to fight like wolves, harpies, and the lowland codin themselves, engaging in some friendly competition. The second map is where a lot of those titans we've been hearing about were roaming around, though I like their designs far more than the Cryptus, but it also seems like there's a healthy population of white mantle to fight there as well. I'm not totally convinced that we won't be spending the majority of the expansion cycle fighting titans of various shapes and sizes like the Cryptus, but overall, it does seem like the story is set up for us to fight a lot more than just them. That's a good segue into talking about the events, which I know a lot of you are probably curious about. ArenaNet set our expectations with a previous blog post explaining that the first map has no large-scale meta event chain, something that pretty much every new map has had since the core game. I think the only exception being like Grothmar Valley. So that's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, we've grown very accustomed to having these huge events to keep returning to for big rewards, and not having that might mean less reason to revisit the map. On the other hand, I think often maps can feel like they're designed around the meta event with not a lot of reason to explore outside of it, and the meta event can even sometimes get in the way of exploration when events are closed off during it. As much as I love the massive hordes of players that defines Guild Wars 2, the smaller stuff throughout the core game is actually what I have more fond memories of. I mean, I've recently been working on full map completion, and yeah, it's been a very refreshing change of pace to not have a huge meta event hanging overhead. You're just jumping into smaller events with other players, taking the time to soak in the world and dialogue. The first map definitely facilitates that kind of playstyle. Like Grothmar, there seems to be a diverse range of events across the map. For example, one of the ones I did was this little dance circle with the lowland codin where you needed to keep up with their moves and it'd get progressively faster. It kind of worked like the Dagda yoga thing in the Amnitas meta, but a lot more fun because there's a bit more movement involved. Then there was another one where we'd ride warclaws around this maze, throwing spears at targets and pulling open gates. Not everyone's gonna love this stuff, but I think it's a nice change of pace. Though they're obviously not all non-combat minigames like this. One of the bigger events we did was this stadium showdown with a codin. Actually a really fun encounter. I mean, the boss was constantly moving around the arena. It had multiple phases, gaining new abilities with each phase. There was this cool attack it did where it'd pick a player up and everyone would have to break the Defiance bar, otherwise it'd choke slam them into the ground around and insta-kill them. This kind of mechanics popped up a few times in raids, but never in the open world setting, I think. So it was really cool to see that here. It kind of acts as a way to teach raid mechanics to non-raiders, which I think is the intention. Really had a lot of fun with this event, and I'm praying it doesn't just fall over with a more coordinated group. Speaking of which, we were then led to a much grander event in the second map where we would fight against a giant titan. Now, the wording in the previous blog post saying that the first map didn't have a meta event kind of implied then that the second map would, so I figured that's what we were being led to. Well, to my surprise, that actually isn't the case. To be clear, as ArenaNet has confirmed to me, there is no meta event in the second map either. What there is instead is a world boss, like a core map style world boss, operating on a timer, etc. I think that's gonna rub a lot of people the wrong way, and yeah, I totally get that. What I will say though, is that this boss is really good and essentially feels like the final boss of a meta event, which, let's be honest, is kind of the best part of meta events anyway. I mean, there's a lot going on here. It's constantly throwing out high damage attacks that'll down you quickly. There's that iconic green stack mechanic that we've seen a lot of, but here there's actually multiple stack circles that you'll need to split between, with a new UI element to tell you the minimum number of players needed. With an uncoordinated group, this was really challenging. I mean, I don't even think we'd have cleared it if it weren't for the dev hacks helping us out. Once we got it low enough, it went into an enraged state where it would continuously fling loads of high damage projectiles while protected by a defiance bar. Because of the damage pressure, you're incentivized to CC from range, and the best way to do that, as it so happens, is with the warclaw chain pull. So I actually really liked this bit. I know some are rightfully skeptical about using mounts in combat. I mean, historically, it's just involved forcing players to jump on turtles and mash the slam button, or hop on their skyscales and mash the fireball key. Like, yeah, I mean, so far it's been pretty lame. The difference here, though, is that those projectiles the boss is flinging out can easily knock you off your warclaw, so you're encouraged to constantly move around the boss and find safe spots to do that chain pull, since that roots you in place. It is a really clever use of the warclaw, in my opinion, much better than how combat mounts have been used in the past. And believe it or not, this is actually a watered down version of the fight. Apparently in the full release you won't be able to break that bar until you kill the extra mobs spawned by the big titan. I am also told there's another boss like this in another location that needs to be killed at the same time, similar to Auric Basin or Triple Trouble. So yeah, this is a really engaging world boss that isn't just all spectacle, no substance. Really keen to see where the tuning of this lands at launch. I'm hoping it'll sit around the difficulty of like Dragon's End, but maybe that's wishful thinking. Given the quality of this world boss, I think it's just a shame that there isn't one in the first map, which ArenaNet did confirm. I think having a world boss there as well wouldn't interfere with that chill vibe in the same way that they don't really interfere with the core maps. So yeah, for that reason, I am a little concerned that the first map isn't going to have much of a reason to return to as this one does, but we'll see. A lot of it comes down to the rewards, so let's talk about some of those. I am very big on fashion. I mean, cosmetics are like 90% of the reason I do anything in any game, so obviously I had to peek at as many of the cosmetics available with Janthir Wilds as I could. There's a bunch of unique weapon skins to go for, like this sick bear claw dagger skin. No idea where you get this, but I'm hoping it's similar to those collections in Secrets of the Obscure. Then of course there's also 3 new armor sets. One from the Wizard's Vault, which is this cool hooded set. There's another from upgrading your Homestead, which is this heavy looking stained glass set. Very cool. And then there's my favorite, the Woad armor set. This is basically the armor that all the lowland codin are wearing. It's this bony survivalist aesthetic, perfectly fitting for this expansion. Honestly, might be one of my favorite sets in the game. Just has a really sick silhouette, gives you sick tattoos. There's 3 different appearances based on weight, which Secrets of the Obscure's armor was lacking, and it really does look excellent across all classes and races. The weird thing is, you do not earn this armor set from playing Janthir Wilds. It is earned exclusively from World versus World. This strikes me as very strange. I want to earn the new armor from playing the new content, not from a mode that hasn't released a new map in half a decade. Visual progression is a thing. It is really important to me, especially in MMORPGs. I mean, it's awesome that there's something to incentivize playing World versus World, but it seems like it'll be be at the expense of Janthir Wilds' replayability. And I think that's the only real concern I have going into this expansion, the chase, at least at launch. There's a new legendary spear and back piece, which is super exciting, but neither of those are here at launch, though ArenaNet did assure me that you'll have a couple collection steps to start working toward them. I think the chase on the launch of Janthir Wilds is meant to revolve around the Homestead. I mean, you get materials for it from achievements, from events, from everything. And for what it's worth, Homesteads are really great. I honestly don't have much to say about them that hasn't already been covered by the PC Gamer video or ArenaNet's recent live stream. I spent a little bit of time there while chatting to the devs. There's a lot of flexibility here, and as someone very familiar with 3D software, I found the controls really easy to get the hang of. It's really good, like easily the most robust housing in any MMORPG, but not everyone is into that. I'm personally very keen to build stuff, but as someone who has none of those expensive gathering nodes, I'm not entirely sure how often I'll be coming here, except to park some characters for the XP boost. It seems like a lot of the event rewards are designed around homesteads, so if this is not your thing, I am a little bit concerned. But essentially, I'm more unsure about the stuff that isn't there than the stuff that is. Because make no mistake, everything I saw in this preview, I was very impressed with. The environments look fantastic, the chill vibe is refreshing, the warclaw really surprised me with how versatile it is, the spears are so much fun to use, the events are thoroughly engaging, and they've really gone all out on player housing, which is something I honestly never thought we'd see in Guild Wars 2, especially in this mini expansion format. I want to say again, I had a really great time with what little I played. I honestly cannot wait to explore Janthir more, and I'm very curious to see where the story goes. You can expect my full review over on the Skill Up channel sometime after launch, so keep your eyes peeled. And on that note, you might be wondering where I've been. If not, you can click off the video now, but TLDR, that's the answer, really, that channel. About this time last year, I started doing my own game reviews on that channel rather than just being an editor, and I really just wanted to commit all my creative energy into that. It was there that I did my Secrets of the Obscure launch review, which I was actually very positive about. But the follow-up patches to Secrets of the Obscure weren't great. Frankly, I just didn't have much to say about them, or at least not much nice to say. So I'm hoping the Janthir Wilds expansion cycle will give me more to talk about with the spears, the raids, the legendaries, homesteads. Lots I'm really looking forward to there. I know many of you have been asking for more guides, so I'll see what I can do there. And I'd also love to cover more general MMO stuff, because I play pretty much all of them. Anyway, we'll see how we go. Thanks to all of you who have stuck around the channel, and thanks for watching the video. Janthir Wilds releases next week, can you believe? Super keen to get stuck in. I'll catch you there.